Welcome to today's reading from the Krishna book. Krishna enters Mathura. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Krishna and Balram have arrived in Mathura, and the people of Mathura are so overjoyed, ecstatic to see them. They had heard of Krishna, but they had never seen him, and now their longing was relieved. After going up on the roofs of the palaces of Mathura, the ladies, their faces joyful, began to shower flowers upon Krishna and Balram. When the brothers were passing through the streets, all the Brahmanas in the neighborhood went out with sandal water and flowers and respectfully welcomed them to the city. All the residents of Mathura began to talk among themselves about the elevated and pious activities of the people of Vrindavan. The residents of Mathura were surprised at the pious activities the cowherd men in Vrindavan must have performed in their previous lives to be able to see Krishna and Balram daily as cowherd boys. While Krishna and Balram were passing this way, they saw a washerman and a dyer of clothing. Krishna was pleased to ask him for some nice clothing. He also promised that if the washerman would deliver the nicest dyed cloth to him, the washerman would become very happy and all good fortune would be his. Krishna was not a beggar, nor was he in need of clothing. But by this request he indicated that everyone should be ready to offer Krishna whatever he wants. That is the meaning of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, this washerman was a servant of Kamsa and therefore could not appreciate the demand of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the effect of bad association. He could have immediately delivered the clothing to Supreme Personality of Godhead, who promised him all the good fortune. But being a servant of Kamsa, the sinful demon could not accept the offer. Instead of being pleased, he was very angry and refused the Lord's request, saying, "How is it that you are asking for clothing which is meant for the king?" The washerman then began to instruct Krishna and Balram, "My dear boys, in the future, don't be so impudent as to ask for things which belong to the king. Otherwise, you will be punished by the government men. They will arrest you and punish you, and you will be in difficulty." I have practical experience of this fact. Anyone who unlawfully wants to use the king's property is very severely punished. On hearing this, Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, became very angry at the washerman, and striking him with the upper portion of his hand, he separated the man's head from his body. The washerman fell down dead on the ground. In this way, Lord Krishna confirmed the statement of the Brahma Samhita that every limb of his body is capable of doing everything he likes. Without a sword, but simply with his hand, he cut off the head of the washerman. This is the proof that the Supreme Lord is omnipotent. If he wants to do something, he can do without extraneous help. After this ghastly incident, the employees of the washerman immediately dispersed, leaving the clothing. Krishna and Balram took possession of it and dressed according to their choice. The rest of the clothes were offered to the cowherd boys, who also used them as they desired. What they did not use remained there. Krishna, Balram and the boys then proceeded along the main road. In the meantime, a devotee tailor took the opportunity of service and prepared some nice clothing from the cloth for Krishna and Balram. Thus, being very nicely attired, Krishna and Balram looked like elephants dressed with colored clothing on the full moon day or the dark moon day. Krishna was very pleased with the tailor and gave him the benediction of Sarupya Mukti, which means that after leaving his body, he would be liberated and would attain a four-handed body, exactly like that of Narayan in the Vaikuntha planets. Krishna also granted him that as long as he would live, he would earn sufficient opulence to be able to enjoy sense gratification. By this incident, Krishna proved that those who are Krishna conscious devotees will not be lacking material enjoyment of sense gratification. They will have sufficient opportunity for such things, but after leaving this body, they will be allowed to enter the spiritual planets of Vaikuntha Lok or Krishna Lok or Golok Vrindavan. After dressing nicely, Krishna and Balram went to a florist of the name Sudama. As soon as they reached the precinct of his house, the florist immediately came out with great devotion, fell down on his face to offer his respectful obeisances. He offered a nice seat to Krishna and Balram and asked his assistant to bring out flowers, betel nuts, and pulp of chandan. The florist greatly satisfied the Lord. The florist very humbly and submissively offered his prayer to the Lord, saying, "My dear Lord, because you come to my place, I think all my forefathers and all my worshipable superiors are pleased and delivered. My dear Lord, you are the supreme cause of all causes of this cosmic manifestation. But for the benefit of the residents of this earthly planet, you have appeared with all your plenary portion to give protection to your devotees and annihilate the demons. You are equally disposed as the friend of all living entities. You are the super soul, and you do not discriminate between friend and enemy. Yet you are pleased to give your devotees the special result of their devotional activities. My Lord, I am praying that you please tell me whatever you wish me to do, because I am your eternal servant. If you would order me to do something, it would be a great favor to me." The florist Sudama was greatly pleased within his heart by seeing Krishna and Balram in his place, and thus, as his choicest desire, he made 2 exquisite garlands of various flowers and presented them to the Lord. Krishna and Balram were very much pleased with his sincere service, and Krishna offered the florist his salutation and benedictions, which he is always prepared to bestow upon the surrendered souls. When the florist was offered benedictions, he begged from the Lord that he might remain his eternal servant in devotional service, and by such service do good to all living creatures. By this it is clear that a devotee of the Lord in Krishna consciousness should not be satisfied simply by his own advancement in devotional service. He must be willing to work for the welfare of all others. This example was followed by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. It is therefore stated in a prayer about them, Lokanam Hitkarino. Vaishnavas or devotees of the Lord are not selfish. Whatever benefits they derive from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as benedictions, they want to distribute to all other persons. That is the greatest of all humanitarian activities. Being satisfied with the florist, Lord Krishna not only gave them whatever benedictions he wanted, but over and above that he offered him all material opulences, family prosperity, a long duration of life, and whatever else his heart desired within this material world. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of the 41st chapter of Krishna. Krishna enters Mathura. Chapter 42, the breaking of the bow in the sacrificial arena. After leaving the florist's place, Krishna and Balram saw a hunchbacked young woman carrying a dish of sandalwood pulp along the streets. Since Krishna is the reservoir of all the pleasure, he wanted to make all his companions joyous by cutting a joke with the hunchbacked woman. Krishna addressed her, "O tall young woman, who are you? Tell me, for whom you are carrying this sandalwood pulp in your hand. I think you should offer this sandalwood to me, and if you do so, I am sure you will be fortunate." Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he knew everything about the hunchback. By this inquiry, he immediately indicated that there was no use in serving a demon. She would do better to serve Krishna and Balram and get an immediate result of the service. The woman replied to Krishna, "My dear Shamsundar, dear beautiful dark boy, you may know that I am engaged as a maidservant of Kamsa. I am supplying him pulp of sandalwood daily. The king is very pleased with me for supplying this nice thing, but now I see that there is no one who can be better served by this pulp of sandalwood than you two brothers." Being captivated by the beautiful features of Krishna and Balram, they're talking, they're smiling, their glancing, and their other activities, the hunchback woman began to smear all the pulp of sandalwood over their bodies, with great satisfaction and devotion. The two transcendental brothers, Krishna and Balram, were naturally beautiful and had beautiful complexions, and they were nicely dressed in colorful garments. The upper portions of their bodies were already very attractive, and when the hunchbacked woman smeared their bodies with sandalwood pulp, they looked even more beautiful. Krishna was very pleased by this service, and he began to consider how to reward her. In other words, in order to draw the attention of the Lord, the Krishna conscious devotee has to serve him in great love and devotion. Krishna cannot be pleased by any action other than transcendental loving service unto him. Thinking like this, Lord Krishna pressed the feet of the hunchbacked woman with his toes, and capturing her cheeks with his fingers, gave her a jerk in order to make her straight. At once the hunchbacked woman became a beautiful straight girl with broad hips and waist and very nice body. Since Krishna was pleased with the service of the hunchbacked woman, and since she was touched by Krishna's hands, she became the most beautiful girl among the women. This incident shows that by serving Krishna, the devotee immediately becomes elevated to the most exalted position in all respects. Devotional service is so potent that anyone who takes it becomes qualified with all godly qualities. Krishna was attracted to the hunchback woman not for her beauty but for her service. As soon as she rendered the service, she immediately became the most beautiful woman. A Krishna conscious person does not have to be qualified or beautiful. After becoming Krishna conscious and rendering service unto Krishna, he becomes very much qualified and beautiful. When the woman was turned by Krishna's favor into an exquisitely beautiful young girl, she naturally felt very much obliged to Krishna, and she was also attracted by his beauty. Without hesitation, she caught the rear part of his cloth and began to pull it. She smiled flirtatiously and admitted that she was agitated by lusty desires. She forgot that she was on the street and therefore before the elder brother of Krishna and his friends. She frankly proposed to Krishna, "My dear hero, I cannot leave you in this way. You must come to my place. I am already very much attracted to your beauty, so I must receive you well. And since you are the best among males, you must also be very kind upon me." In plain words, she proposed that Krishna come to her home and satisfy her desires. Krishna, of course, felt a little bit embarrassed in front of his elder brother Balaram, but he knew that the girl was simple and attracted. Therefore, he simply smiled at her words. Looking toward his cowherd boyfriends, he replied to her, "My dear beautiful girl, I am very much pleased by your invitation, and I must come to your home after finishing my other business here. Such a beautiful girl as you is the only means of solace for persons like us, who are always away from home and are not married. Certainly, a suitable girlfriend like you can give us relief from all kinds of mental agitation." Krishna satisfied the girl in this way with sweet words. Leaving her there, he proceeded down the street of the marketplace, where the citizens were prepared to receive him with various kinds of presentations, especially betel nuts, flowers, and sandalwood pulp. The mercantile men in the market worshipped Krishna and Balram with great respect. When Krishna was passing through the street, all the women in the surrounding houses came to see him, and some of the younger ones almost fainted. Being captivated by his beauty, their hair and tight clothing loosened, and they forgot where they were standing. Krishna next inquired from the citizens as to the location of the place of sacrifice. Kamsa has arranged for the sacrifice called Dhanur Yajna, and to designate this particular sacrifice, he had placed a big bow near the sacrificial altar. The bow was very big and wonderful and resembled a rainbow in the sky. Within the sacrificial arena, this bow was protected by many constables and watchmen engaged by King Kamsa. As Krishna and Balram approached the bow, they were warned not to go nearer, but Krishna ignored his warning. This warning, he forcibly went up and immediately took the big bow in his left hand. After stringing the bow in the presence of the crowd, he drew it and broke it at the middle into two parts, exactly as an elephant breaks sugarcane in the field. Everyone present appreciated Krishna's power. The sound of the bow cracking filled both sky and land and was heard by Kamsa. When Kamsa heard what had happened, he began to fear for his life. The caretakers of the bow, who were standing by watching, became very angry, and with their respective weapons in hand, they rushed towards Kamsa, Krishna, shouting, arrest him, kill him, kill him." Krishna and Balram were surrounded. When they understood the sinister moves of the guards, they became angry, and taking up the two pieces of the broken bow, they began to beat off all Kamsa's caretakers. While the turmoil was going on, Krishna sent a small group of troops to assist the caretakers, but Krishna and Balram fought with them also and killed them. After this, Krishna did not proceed further into the sacrificial arena, but went out the gate and proceeded toward their resting camp. Along the way, he visited various places in Mathura city with great delight. Seeing the activities and wonderful prowess of Krishna, all the citizens of Mathura began to consider the two brothers to be demigods who had come down to Mathura, and they all looked upon them with great astonishment. The two brothers strolled carefree in the street, not caring for the law and order of Kamsa. As sunset approached, Krishna and Balram and their cowherd boyfriends went to the outskirts of the city. Their carts were assembled, thus Krishna and Balram gave some preliminary hints of their arrival to Kamsa, and he could understand what severe type of danger was awaiting him in the next day in the sacrificial arena. When Krishna and Balram had been going from Vrindavan to Mathura, the inhabitants of Vrindavan had imagined the great fortune of the citizens of Mathura in being able to see the wonderful beauty of Krishna, who is worshipped by his pure devotees as well as the goddess of fortune. The fantasies of the residents of Vrindavan were now actually realized, for the citizens of Mathura became fully satisfied by seeing Krishna. When Krishna returned to his camp, he was taken care of by servants who washed his lotus feet, gave him a nice seat, and offered him milk and palatable dishes. After taking supper and thinking of the next day's program, he very peacefully took rest. Thus he passed the night there. On the other hand, when Kamsa came to understand about the breaking of his wonderful bow and the killing of the caretakers of the soldiers by Krishna, he could partially realize the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He could realize the eighth son of Devaki had appeared and that now his death was imminent. Thinking of his imminent death, he was restless the entire night. He began to have many inauspicious visions, and he could understand that Krishna and Balram, who had approached the precincts of the city, were his messengers of death. Kamsa saw various kinds of inauspicious signs while both awake and dreaming. When he looked in the mirror, he could not see his head, although the head was actually present. He saw the luminaries in the sky in double, although there was only one set factually. He began to see holes in his shadow, and he heard a high buzzing sound within his ears. All the trees before him appeared to be made of gold, and he could not see his own footprints in dust or muddy clay. In dreams, he saw various kinds of ghosts being carried in carriage drawn by donkeys. He also dreamed that someone gave him poison and he was drinking it. He dreamed also that he was going naked with the garland of flowers and was smearing oil all over his body. Thus, as Kamsa saw various signs of death while both awake and sleeping, he could understand that death was certain, and thus in great anxiety he could not rest that night. Just after the night expired, he busily arranged for the wrestling match. The wrestling arena was nicely cleansed and decorated with flags, festoons, and flowers, and the match was announced by the beating of the kettle drums. The platform appeared very beautiful due to the streamers and flags. Different types of galleries were arranged for the respectable persons, kings, brahmanas, and kshatriyas. The various kings had reserved thrones and others had arranged seats also. Kamsa finally arrived, accompanied by various ministers and secretaries, and he sat on the raised platform especially meant for him. Unfortunately, although he was sitting in the center of his all-governing executive heads, his heart was palpitating in fear of death. Cruel death evidently does not care even for a person as powerful as Kamsa. When death comes, it does not care for anyone's exalted position. When everything was complete, the wrestlers who were to exhibit their skills before the assembly walked into the arena. They were decorated with nice ornaments and dress. Some of the famous wrestlers were Chanur, Mushtik, Shal, Kuta, and Toshal. Being enlivened by the musical concert, they passed through the great Alkriti in the respectable cowherd men who came from Vrindavan, headed by Nand, were also welcomed by Kamsa. After presenting Kamsa with the milk products they had brought with them, the cowherd men also took their respective seats by the side of the king on a platform especially meant for them. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 42nd chapter of Krishna, the breaking of the bow in the sacrificial arena. So, Krishna has broken the sacrificial bow in the wrestling arena, and Kamsa's death will be unfolded in the next chapter, perhaps. We'll continue our reading from here onwards tomorrow. Thank you, Shweta, for watching. You must be wondering for the new time, but I just felt like to go through this book so that it comes to an end quickly, so I can take on my next desired project in my head. I wish you a very nice remainder of your day in your part of world, and I shall see you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna.